I'm gonna bust a nut in this fellow. Buster Bros. Maybe Buster Bros is stretching it a little bit. We open the game with a view of a young man with his feet on the table, eating a chili dog. But he's not Sonic the Hedgehog. It's made apparent that the man, Limbo Fitzgerald, is a lawyer, and the man whose point of view we're seeing from is a criminal that asks for him. The criminal is talking frantically about things that don't seem to entirely make sense, saying that Limbo is going to die in less than an hour. He knows this because he is a young woman who traveled back in time. Bustafellows follows Toyota Bridges, a freelance journalist in the fictional American city of New Sieg. Toyota appears to be a perfectly normal girl, but she has an extraordinary power. She has the ability to time travel. It's extremely limited though. She can only travel back temporarily into the body of another person, and she can't control whose body she enters. Before I go into the video properly, I'm just going to say that I did see the warning before the game. Don't put anything past chapter 1 online. So I can't go into as much detail as I could with Hat of a Boyfriend in the name of not getting into trouble, and on a secondary note, not burning out again, because I was getting a bit burnt out towards the end of Hat of a Boyfriend, I have to admit. After the opening, we see 4 of the 5 love interests and immediately get a feel for their personalities. First, we see a man called Helvetica talking sweetly to a woman. It's made evident during their conversation that he's a plastic surgeon and she is his patient. He talks to her in a gentle, soothing way. Next is the mortician Mozu. He's talking to a corpse on the table, talking to them kindly and sympathizing about how much the method of death would have hurt, despite his colleagues talking about him behind his back. We get the sense he isn't a bad person, just weird. A bit like me, I guess. Thirdly, we see Shu. He's murdering a guy, taking a smoke from his cigarette and commenting on how today is a good day to die. Last is Limbo, who is talking circles around a judge during a trial. He's pissing her off and basically calling her incompetent. Each one of them gets a call from a man called Scarecrow. I like this scene, it gives a good sense of each character. We then go to the perspective of Toyota in her real body. Before the meeting we see in the opening. We call this in media res, and learn that she became a freelance journalist in order to hunt for clues about why her brother died. She talks to her friend Luca, a female police officer, in a Mexican restaurant, and we briefly meet Mozu, who comments on Toyota's bone structure, which is not the worst comment to get from a man, I'm sure. Also, Toyota's having issues with her apartment building. This is relevant. She and Limbo briefly talk in definitely not Times Square, and he hands her a business card. I find it deeply silly that his phone number is 1-800-NO-GUILT. I don't understand American phone numbers. That's not even a phone number at this point. That's words! Also, Toyota and all the love interests have back sprites. Neat. A thought just occurred to me. Like, we're ostensibly seeing from Toyota's perspective, right? Why is it that sometimes we can see the back of her head? Is she having an out-of-body experience during those times? We see a scene with Limbo and Shu, who are conducting an under-the-table deal to expose a money laundering scheme done by the owner of a bank. But then their contact gets shot after they meet. Oops. Toyota gets called by a convict on trial for murder, who asks for her specifically. He then gets surprised with information on a secret underground crime organization. Gasp emoji. After she leaves the police station, she sees Limbo in definitely not Times Square again, but then he falls to the floor, bleeding heavily from the chest. He talks about Naveed before passing away hit in her arms. Honestly, the image of him is, kinda gruesome. So Toyota decides to go back in time, and we see the scene from the introduction again. While in the body of the male criminal, she asks Limbo to show the contents of his pocket and tells him to meet her at a specific coffee shop. Time passes and Toyota goes to the coffee shop in her own body, and she meets Shu. To be fair, what she said to Limbo in the criminal's body is pretty suspect. It's fairly reasonable to be cautious. After a while, Limbo arrives and his coffee order makes me crinkle. I'm a sweet tooth and even that's too much for me. And of course, since we asked for the contents of Limbo's pocket, we need to answer correctly. I fucked it up in the footage. Mostly because I forgot about quick saving. Oopsies, my bad, teehee, lamau. And also the time choices made me panic. Puts my fingers together. But also, since Teota mentions the name Limbo said in his dying breaths, he becomes a bit more amenable to believe her. Because that's a name only he would know. They go to see Helvetica. I wrote in my notes that Helvetica doesn't read as entirely straight to me. What do you all think? Comment down below, is this guy bi? Also, he does a ballroom hold and gives Teota a point score for her looks. Jail. Immediately jail. The gang of men and Teota decides to fake Limbo's death with the knowledge that Teota gave them. Also, because they don't entirely trust her yet, the group, specifically Shu, confiscates her phone. I'm a modern woman. Taking my phone would cripple me. I'd die. Painfully. I wouldn't be able to leave my house. And my VTuber model wouldn't be able to move. Helvetica joins Teota in a group trip to a bar that the childhood friend group frequents, including Teota herself, Adam, a Russian immigrant who became a newscaster/idol, and Luca, who we met earlier. We meet the owner of the bar, Carmen, and I'm definitely not distracted. Also, I have to question something. Americans don't really do idol singers like Japan does, right? Wouldn't it be weird for a serious newscaster to become an idol? Whatever. The next day, the men and Teota carry out the fake death plan in order to reveal the bank owner did actually launder money and order assassinations. Helvetica carries out the quote-unquote murder disguised as a woman. Limbo is kind of terrible at pretending to die. They actually go whole hog and make a fake death certificate. The whole thing is captured and put on social media by Shu. Oh yeah, there's a fake social media site called Full Circle in this game. Not as bad a name as X. They go back to Helvetica's plastic surgery clinic and watch the news story on Limbo's death. That must be so weird. They plan to go to a specific place to collect the money. When we arrive at the shipyard, Helvetica makes a call to drop off the briefcase of money at a specific location. My thought on this part of the scene was... We need to get this man to do voice training for trans femme people. They collect the money, show that Limbo is alive, and live stream the whole thing to Full Circle, including the guy admitting to laundry money and ordering an assassination. But then, a helicopter arrives with the Shu at the wheel, joysticks. I know nothing about helicopters. As the good guys take off, the police arrive and Limbo spills the contents of the suitcase. I mean, they don't want dirty money. It's kind of a cool visual. After that, Limbo takes on Teota's legal issues with her apartment per their prior agreement. Then they go to the bar for a while with all of the love interests, and after she gets her phone back, she learns that her whole apartment building, collapsed. It's so old it just collapsed. Luckily no one was hurt, but now she's homeless. Luckily we have a guy who keeps spying on everyone, and he has 100 million rooms in the form of, Scarecrow. The guy I mentioned earlier. And Shu mentions sex offhandedly, and my editor could probably see in the footage that I was caught off guard and started laughing. So we go to Scarecrow's giant modern mansion. Literally all of the love interests live there. And we meet Scarecrow in person and learn that he's an oralist nerd. Also, if a cishet man calls me tuts in real life, balls inversion. They're inside out now. How? Who knows? Teota gets a really fucking nice bedroom with a huge bed. And we get to see how truly oralists Scarecrow is. He has a disrespect fine, so if someone talks shit about him, they have to pay a fine. So all of the others decide to prepay the fine so they can shit talk freely. They also hand out everyone's even split of the money from this job, and at 120,000 USD, split 6 ways, so 20k per person. Yes, please. But Tota actually turns down the money because she felt she didn't do anything to earn it and gives it back to Scarecrow, calling it her rent. Thus ends the part of the game that I can actually show footage of. I am going to err on the side of caution. I'm going to give you a basic premise of each route and my opinion of each character. And if you want to know the rest of the story, it's available for Switch 1 and Steam. That said, before I go into the main routes, I'm going to mention that the common route has a scene where Tota wears a swimsuit that the love interest you have the most affection with picks out. Dating sims tend to have a main love interest. Their face is front and center on the box art, and they'll either be the very first or very last route depending on the game. Limbo is this game's main love interest. He's notorious for being a crooked lawyer. He always says that he decides what's right and what isn't. But also, he backs up his words with actions. That said, he's not my favoritist guy. He's okay, I guess. Force my hand. Also, he has a hot sister. I like his hot sister. I hope she's into women. Also, this is the first time we're seeing character image colors. Limbo is surprisingly green, but he has the soul of a red boy. In his, main default outfit, he has a deep red shirt, like a maroon color. And red is the hero color for heroes. Like Power Rangers. I've never watched Power Rangers. Limbo's route involves a friend from his past, the aforementioned Naveed. The name Limbo mentioned in his dying breaths. Like it's really apparent that something went on between them. Naveed makes reference to losing his license to practice law and Limbo having something to do with that. At first, we kind of don't know who's in the right. Was Naveed's legal license removed wrongly? Did Limbo, the face of the game, do something bad? Draw your own conclusion. Unless you've played the game already. There are themes of finding out the right and wrong way to help people and how difficult and shitty it is to know the right thing to do sometimes. That and also the right and wrong way to help illegal immigrants, because if you get authorities involved, then it can end poorly for the immigrants. Then of course there's a difference between legally correct and morally correct. The legally correct course of action doesn't always lead to a desirable outcome. Similarly, doing illegal things isn't always right either. Shit's fucking deep. Philosophy. As for Limbo himself, he's somewhat sensible in the grand scheme of things. He can banter with the best of them. He has nigh unshakable morals, as we've seen in the first chapter. His catchphrase is, "I'll decide what's wrong and right." Even though he's a lawyer, he works with the extra-legal group, the Fixers, to right the wrongs that fly under the radar. But also because of the details I can't go into, we see a more vulnerable side to him. Like he gets drunk and falls asleep on Tota's lap and he gets upset about stuff. He's also really bad at relying on others, so the rest of the characters have to force their help onto him. My opinion is... he's fine. He's not the worst dating sim love interest I've ever seen. That would be Dog Cage Man. And his story is interesting and kind of relevant for current American life, to my understanding. But I do have to wonder what kind of parent names their kid Limbo. I just saw his name. Is he part Irish? There's a very Irish surname with a Japanese first name. Who is closest to my strike zone? He's kind of playfully mean. He's also mildly a pervert. But also having played through the his route properly as of this recording. He's only a mild pervert on like 2 occasions. He's not perfectly my type, but he is the closest of the main cast. I remember kind of thinking during my first playthrough that his route would be a bit more adult than it ended up being. I mean, it's more sweet than anything, if I remember correctly. Shu's image color is blue, indicating that he's the cool guy that's secondary to the main hero. Shu's route doesn't have quite as clear-cut a theme as Limbo's route does, in my opinion. Maybe being bad at communication kind of sucks. Shu has a family member he hates for what turns out to be an entirely avoidable reason. Also, his adversary, Yang, is apparently meant to read as ambiguously gendered, but, doesn't really, to me. They also reference a film about Calamity Jane, but I'm assuming they're not talking about the 1953 musical starring Doris Day, which is the one I know, and they're probably going for a more historically accurate film, where they don't break into song. They use that story to foreshadow the route, and imply things, I guess. They also reference a song called The Yellow Rose of Texas, which is actually the name of the route, which is a folk song originating from the 1850s, whose original lyrics are, pretty racist. There are alternative versions, however, that talk about a man who is saved by the thought of a woman who he calls his Yellow Rose. And Shu's occupation is bounty hunter / hitman. I think the intention is to draw comparisons between Shu and gunslingers from old western movies. Shu is very much the character I expected to be the sex appeal character. There's always a sex appeal character. He's actually more like a melting ice king. He very much has his guard up at first, and he feels like a dangerous man as a hitman / bounty hunter by occupation. In fact, early in the route, we get to see him come home after murdering someone, and he's got blood splatters on him, and he's pissy, and his eyes are glowing for some reason. He actually tries to ward Teoto off, telling her to go fall in love with some other guy, but of course it doesn't work. He's also the muscle of the Fixers group. He gets relied on for heavy lifting, and he has abs for days. Although that's not to say that he isn't smart in some ways. He's really good at figuring out how to kill people, and really good at figuring out other assassins. In my opinion, Shu is also just fine. Even though he's my favorite love interest in this game. I don't know. I expected more, but I'm left somewhat unsatisfied. I have to wonder why he's named after a font. Also, he doesn't read as entirely straight to me somehow based off his looks and demeanor. But also he never expresses attraction to men. I'm bad at reading that kind of thing in general. Helvetica's image color is pink. Pink has 3 potential meanings. They're either the cute one, or they're the sexy one, or they're both. Helvetica is intended to be the sexy one. Your mileage may vary. I'm kind of in 2 minds about Helvetica. Or maybe 3. Let's see how many. I'm gonna compliment Sandwich this bitch. Point in favor. He's a plastic surgeon, and he makes a point to care for his patients' mental health. He offers counseling before and after surgery. I can only say that that's undeniably a good thing. Point against, he keeps offering unsolicited opinions on Teota's face, body, and demeanor. Like, yes, he's a plastic surgeon with a strong aesthetic sense, but like, dude, you're a man. If you're not on the job, if you're not asked, don't offer an opinion on that sort of thing. As a general rule of thumb. It's not fun, it's not cute, it's obnoxious. Point in favor. Helvetica's backstory is genuinely heartbreaking. He had a lot going on. It's kind of amazing that he is where he is now. The separate point in favor is his dad's a DILF that's voiced by Tomokazu Sugita. If you do decide to play this game yourself, I would like to give you a trigger warning for specifically this route and put a timestamp on screen for when the trigger warning is over, in case you don't want mild spoilers. I character during the course of the route gets kidnapped and drugged and overdoses. While they don't die, you see the aftermath of the overdose, and it's pretty unpleasant and jarring. I personally found it pretty upsetting, so if you're also someone who finds that kind of thing triggering or upsetting, I've given you a fair warning. Trigger warning, spoiler time over! The last thing I'd like to say about Helvetica's route is that I wrote in my notes, is this a metaphor for having a transphobic friend? Perhaps you'll understand if you play this yourself. Mozu is the autism creature of the group. He doesn't really emote much, or at least he doesn't show it on his face. He talks in a weird way, and he has an interest in human biology and physiology as a mortician. He's better autism representation than Bazinga Man Big Bang Theory. I also remember his route not actually being all that romance-focused, surprisingly for this type of game. You don't actually progress with him until his B-side route. And there's a perfectly good reason I can't go into that. Also, yellow color motifs are usually reserved for cheerful and sunny characters. No, the motif color lied. It lies. Ugh. Death isn't always meaningful. It can be unpleasant and nonsensical. That's just an unfortunate reality. I don't feel as though I'm in the right sort of headspace at the moment to go through this route, because it got real rough. I'm sorry for skipping this, and I will let my editor put the trigger warnings on the screen visually, because I can feel myself tearing up. And I hate crying on mic, so... We're 2 for 2 on the Otome Game Book Club episodes with a Hypnosis mic actor in it. It's not nearly as funny as having Samatoki's actor playing a Moe blob, though. If I reference Hypnosis Michael again in this series, someone somewhere needs to tell me off. Aside from the tangent, Scarecrow is so far from my type that he'd need a plane ticket to reach me. He seems like the type to focus so much on you being a girl that he forgets that you're, well, a person. See, Scarecrow's route started out interesting. You kind of expect, like, a hacking-based spy thriller from his route. You kind of expect a tragic backstory, because this is an Ultimate game, that's just how that be. Part 1 of my criticism. If you don't know much about a disorder, don't try and portray it. Just don't. If you really, really want to do it, do your research. Be respectful. Remember that existing with certain disorders is some people's lived experience. Part 2. Straight women need to value themselves more. Just like in general. You don't have to live like this. I'll be honest here and say, I'm not keen on any of these men. Not a single one of them is my type. My personal favourite is Shu, but the closest to my type in this game is probably Limbo's hot sister. I also didn't remember a single detail of the plot before playing. With Otome games, there tends to be like an overarching plot that unifies the routes. Like the theme park being taken over in Sweet Fuse at your side. A massive criminal organization causing the city to be quarantined in Color Malice. Or hashtag bird politics and Shoot You Amine causing problems in Hatful Boyfriend. The blurb for this game is just like, there's a mystery and you kiss men. It also shows some fairly upsetting and grim things with minimal warning, which I'm not super keen on. Especially with Helvetica's and Mozu's routes. Like, I'm not usually one to skip topics due to finding them personally upsetting, but Mozu's route was rough for me. This kind of thing is why content warnings exist. The framing for this game is a lot like a TV show, especially within the common route. Like, Chapter 1 is the pilot that establishes the main characters. People get put into situations and we learn about the main characters' personalities. If anything, I'd somewhat compare it to a police procedural like Castle or The Mentalist, minus the main characters being, well, police. Especially with the establishment of a mystery in the form of Toyota's brother's death that reminds me of the main characters of some of those shows I used to watch having tragic backstories. It's neat in concept, but within the roots, at least, they don't do much with the idea. And it does explore some themes that are relevant to American life, such as illegal immigration, gangs, and corrupt rich people. It takes a sympathetic view to illegal immigrants and people living in poverty, which is a breath of fresh air, frankly. I feel like we need that kind of story in this day and age. I feel like this game is more about the character interactions than the story. But, like, the characters I like are minor characters. I wish I liked the main characters, but, like, I'm sorry. I don't. I can't talk about the particulars of their endings, but I rarely found them satisfying. I remember the 8 deadly words that I saw on TV tropes, and it's unfortunate, but, like, I gotta say it. I don't care what happens to these people. It's meant to be a mystery game, but, like, oh my god, I don't care. Also, for the fact that this game takes place in not New York, there are very few notable people of color in the cast. The most prominent one is Pepe, who is depicted as basically subservient to a white woman and refers to himself in third person for some reason. Beyond that, he doesn't have much character. Like, I'm very, very white, and this bothered me. Isn't the real New York a cultural melting pot no matter what borough you go to? Why is almost everyone whiter than a pharaoh? There's also a sequel, but, like, no. Just no. I guess I should say something nice. The background artwork's pretty. I'd live in Scarecrow's house. I don't want anyone else there, but I'd live there. Anyway, what if you subscribe to me? And, follow my Patreon, even if it's just for free. I mean, I don't post on there, but you can support me financially if you want. And you can subscribe to me here. I'm working my way up to 1K followers. Followers? Subscribers. I'm working my way up to 1K subscribers. So if you wanted to help me, feel free. And also, thank you to my editor yet again. You're so patient with me. And thank you to my friends who are also patient with me. Especially while I'm having health issues. And also thank you to Elise for explaining American things to me. Anyway, I think Vi and I agreed that the next one, the next Otome Game Book Club, is also going to be in a fake city in America, so that's fun. Goodbye.